My name is Noah Grant, and for over 6 years, I poured my soul into a YouTube channel that I thought we were building together. The concept was simple but powerful. Stories of resilience from people who built something from nothing. I wanted to spotlight those who were ignored, dismissed, or underestimated. And for a while, it worked. The channel grew fast, thousands, then hundreds of thousands of subscribers. But behind the polished videos and growing fanbase, only 2 people truly knew what it took to keep it running: me and the man who stood in front of the camera, Tyler West. Tyler was my college roommate, my business partner, and someone I once called a brother. He had the face, the voice, the charisma. But I was the engine. I wrote the scripts. I researched every story. I A/B tested thumbnails until 3 a.m., ran 200 Gmail seeding accounts from 30 proxies, and even built the analytics tracker we use to optimize our uploads. I whispered ideas. He shouted them on camera. It wasn't always fair, but I believed in what we were building. Until one morning, everything went silent. I woke up to find myself locked out of the Google account, the shared Dropbox folder empty. Every tool, every dashboard I had access to was wiped. At first, I thought it was a technical issue. But then, I got a message. One line, cold, final. We're restructuring the brand. Appreciate the help. Take care. No signature, no explanation. Just like that, I was cut out. I didn't cry. Not at first. I just sat at my desk, staring at the analytics page I could no longer access, listening to the buzz of my secondhand PC fan, a sound I'd once associated with progress. In a single move, he erased years of work, silenced my voice, and claimed full credit for a legacy we built together. And the worst part? No one knew. To the public, Tyler was the genius, the voice of the brand, the guy who built something from scratch. And I was a ghost. But ghosts have a strange way of returning when you least expect them. And this ghost, I wasn't going to stay invisible much longer.
Lily and I once shared a bond that felt unbreakable. After the divorce from her mother, we created our own sacred rituals during weekends together. Saturday morning pancakes with blueberries shaped like constellations, puzzles that covered the entire dining room table, and spontaneous midnight drives where we'd lie in the back of my pickup truck, wrapped in blankets, staring at the stars like they held answers to questions neither of us could yet ask. Those were the days I felt closest to my daughter. That was before Eliza. When I met Eliza, she brought a whirlwind of warmth and sophistication. She was charming, thoughtful, and at first she seemed to embrace Lily. She'd laugh at Lily's jokes, offer advice on high school drama, and bake cookies with her like it was a Pinterest ad come to life. I was grateful, even relieved. I thought, maybe this is what a healed family looks like. But healing doesn't happen when one part of you slowly disappears. It didn't start as a rupture. It was erosion, quiet, slow, unnoticed until it had hollowed out everything meaningful. Eliza was subtle. She never said, "Don't go see your dad," or "Ignore him." Instead, she offered alternatives. "Let's go shopping instead of puzzles." Or, "Maybe your dad wouldn't understand prom dresses the way I do." And I, foolishly trusting, assumed it was normal. I thought I was giving space for their relationship to blossom. I didn't realize I was giving up ground I'd never get back. The first time I noticed the distance, Lily had just turned 16. She arrived for the weekend with her earbuds in and a silence that was louder than any argument. She didn't ask to make pancakes. She didn't mention the stars. She spent most of her time texting Eliza, who had apparently taken her shopping that week for her first makeup kit, something I'd imagined being a part of, but wasn't even told about. I remember standing at the kitchen counter, flipping pancakes alone, watching the blueberries sizzle in the batter like tiny bruises. By the time she turned 17, I was no longer her confidant. I was the man who paid for gas money and asked too many questions. It all crystallized when she came over in early spring, wearing a necklace I hadn't seen before. It was delicate, silver, with a tiny locket. I complimented it, and she smiled faintly. Eliza gave it to me. She said it's from her family. A pause. It's more personal than anything I've ever gotten. That sentence landed like a punch. I had spent years saving every birthday card she scribbled for me, every macaroni art project, every little moment that screamed father and daughter, and now all of it was being rewritten, not by accident, but by quiet design. Still, I didn't push. I told myself, she's growing. It's normal. I believed that love, especially a parent's, was unconditional. That she'd come back around. That all the stargazing and spilled pancake syrup still lived somewhere in her heart. But now, holding that wedding invitation that didn't even mention my name, I realized something else. Love may be unconditional, but respect is not. And somehow, somewhere, I had lost both. Worse yet, it had happened while I was still there, still showing up, still trying. That was the cruelest injustice of all. I was erased in slow motion, smiling through it the whole time.
I found out about Lily's engagement through a friend who saw it on Instagram. There she was, beaming in a flowing blue dress, standing next to her fiancé, Owen, against a backdrop of twinkling lights and champagne flutes. The caption read, "He asked, I said yes. Can't wait to celebrate with those who matter most. Hashtag forever Lily and Owen." Those who matter most. I read it again and again. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't even aware she was dating someone seriously. I called her that night. She didn't answer. The next morning, Eliza called. Not Lily, Eliza. Her voice was clipped, businesslike. She said, "I suppose you've seen the post? Look, it's not personal, Daniel. It's just, with the divorce and all the changes, Lily didn't want any tension on her big day. She thought it'd be easier this way." Easier? I nearly choked on the word. I had walked Lily through nightmares when she was 6, stood by her through every scraped knee, sat through ballet recitals and dentist visits. I built her a treehouse when she was 9 and held her hand when her goldfish died. And now I was a risk to the aesthetics of a perfect wedding? "I see," I said calmly, though my voice trembled with effort. "So I'm not invited?" There was a pause on the other end. "It's not like that. It's just complicated." Complicated. That word again, always used to mask cowardice. It would have been easier if they'd screamed at me, if there had been a blowout argument. But there was no fire. Just this freezing, surgical removal of me from her life. done in whispers and silences, executed by Eliza but signed and sealed with Lily's silence. I didn't go to work the next day. I sat on the back porch, where Lily once read comic books and drew flowers on the wooden railing in chalk. I traced one of her old sketches, still faint after all these years. A crooked daisy, smiling at nothing. I remembered when Lily begged me to teach her how to ride a bike. I ran behind her down this very path, cheering her on, even when she crashed into the fence. She cried that day, but got back on. I'd always believed she was brave. But now she was hiding behind Eliza, letting her rewrite the guest list of a life I had helped build. That night I pulled out a box from my closet. Photos, birthday cards, ticket stubs from the time we watched the eclipse together. I stared at the memories, trying to find answers in the smiles. Where had the turning point been? When did she start slipping away? Was it something I did, or something Eliza slowly, methodically made her believe? Anger filled the space where love had once resided freely. It didn't roar. It seethed. Quiet. Bitter. Burning in silence. I didn't yell. I didn't text. I didn't beg to be reconsidered. But inside, something was shifting. This wasn't about a wedding. It was about identity, about dignity, about being treated as disposable. I knew I couldn't force my way into Lily's ceremony, but I could take back something even more valuable: myself. I spent the days following Eliza's phone call in a strange kind of silence. I didn't lash out. I didn't call Lily again. Instead, I opened a drawer that hadn't been touched in months. The one where I stored every receipt, every tuition statement, and every signed document related to Lily's education, housing, and health insurance. I spent a full weekend quietly organizing it all. Every bill for her freshman dorm deposit, the dental surgery I covered last year, the last 3 semesters of her college tuition, paid in full. The utilities under my name. Even the furniture in her and Owen's apartment. They'd ask to borrow my credit card when they moved in, promising they'd pay it back. They never did. I never asked them to. And then there was the lease agreement. It was my apartment. Technically, still mine. I had drafted a simple lease, rent-free, just so she'd have an official address when applying for scholarships. Now, that address was going to host a wedding I wasn't invited to. It hit me like a thunderclap. I'd been subsidizing my own erasure. I placed everything in a large manila envelope and added a handwritten note. Congratulations on your new chapter. Consider this my final contribution. Going forward, build it yourselves. I delivered the envelope myself to the apartment door. Our apartment door. I knocked, then slid it through the mail slot when no one answered. Later that night, Eliza called. She didn't bother hiding her rage. "You're punishing her for loving me more," she spat. "No," I replied, voice calm. "I'm removing myself where I'm no longer welcome." "She's your daughter." "I know," I said quietly, "and I've loved her enough for both of us, but I won't finance disrespect." She hurled another insult and hung up. I stood there, staring out at the quiet night, feeling something
unexpected. Clarity. I wasn't trying to hurt Lily. I was teaching her, maybe too late, that every relationship has boundaries, even with parents, especially with parents. Love doesn't mean unconditional access, not when it's laced with humiliation. The next day, I called the utility companies and transferred the accounts out of my name. I sent the updated lease paperwork to the property manager, informing them Lily and Owen would need to apply formally or vacate within 30 days. It wasn't petty. It was overdue. Friends told me I was being harsh, that I'd regret it. But what they didn't see, what no one saw, was how much I'd already lost trying to be the better person. There's a fine line between being generous and being used. I danced on it for too long. Empowerment, I realized, isn't loud. It's not a speech or a saying. It's choosing not to be the background character in your own life anymore. It's saying, enough. I didn't need revenge. I needed a boundary. And that boundary was now drawn, clear, sharp, and final.
3 weeks passed in silence. Not a text, not a call, no angry voicemails or sarcastic follow-ups from Eliza. For the first time in years, my phone didn't carry the weight of expectation. It felt light. Then, on a quiet Sunday morning, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No return address, just my name in familiar handwriting. Round, slightly slanted, with little hearts above every lowercase I. Harper's handwriting. I stared at it for minutes before I opened it. Inside was a letter. Handwritten. Tear stand. It didn't start with an apology. It started with confusion. Dad, I don't know how to even begin this. I thought you were angry with me for something I didn't understand. I thought you just gave up. She recounted the past few weeks, how everything began to fall apart when the electricity was shut off, the rent notice arrived, and her school called about a missed payment. She confronted Eliza, thinking it was just a clerical error. That's when Eliza finally broke. She told Harper the truth. That everything, the apartment, the tuition, the insurance, the support, was from me. That I had paid for everything quietly, without recognition, because I didn't want to take away from her special moments. And then Eliza admitted something else. That she had actively erased me. That she'd convinced Harper I was the reason for our divorce. That she told Harper I didn't show up for her recitals when in fact she had forgotten to tell me the date. That I didn't care about her college application when I had actually spent hours editing her essays only for Eliza to submit them under her own email and name. I believed her, she wrote, because it was easier to question the version of you she gave me. I thought she was protecting me. I didn't realize she was keeping me from the only person who ever showed up for me, always quietly. Her words broke something open in me. Not pain this time, but release. She ended the letter with a request, not an apology, a hope. I want to rebuild, Dad. Not because I owe you, but because I miss you, and I finally see you. We met a week later at a local park. No big scene, just a bench under an old oak tree where she used to feed squirrels when she was 5. She looked older thou, tired, unsure, but so did I. She sat beside me without saying a word for the first 5 minutes. Then, "Do you hate me?" I shook my head. "Never." She started to cry. So did I. We didn't fix everything that day. That's not how wounds heal. But we opened the door again. Together. No one else between us. No agendas. Just father and daughter. She told me she'd moved out of the apartment and taken a student loan to cover the rest of her semester. Said she wanted to stand on her own feet, but hoped I'd still be there, just as a dad this time. Not a bank account. I promised I would. And I meant it. It wasn't recognition through headlines or applause. It was something better. It was my daughter finally seeing me. Not as the man her mother painted, but the man who had always stood behind her.
They say time heals all wounds, but I think time just gives us space to see the truth more clearly. In the end, Harper and I didn't need some big public reconciliation or dramatic forgiveness arc. What we needed was honesty, space, and the courage to step back toward one another without expecting perfection. From the moment I realized Eliza had manipulated not just the narrative, but our daughter's very memory of me, I knew the path forward wasn't about vengeance. It was about protection, about self-worth, about standing tall, even if no one applauded. Each phase of this story taught me something. In the beginning, I was erased. I was reduced to a shadow in my own daughter's life. That was the injustice. Then came the rage. Not just anger at Eliza, but at myself for letting it happen, for not seeing the signs sooner, for not fighting louder. But rage doesn't build bridges. So I turned inward. I started writing letters, leaving traces, sending quiet reminders of love, not because I thought they'd be returned, but because I couldn't let the truth die unheard. That was the beginning of my empowerment. And finally came the moment of recognition, not by the world, not even by Eliza, but by the only person that mattered in this story. My daughter. Harper saw me, not as the ghost her mother painted, but as the man who'd stood behind her every step of the way, quietly rooting for her, silently absorbing the pain, and still choosing to show up. We still have a long way to go, but our story no longer ends in bitterness. It continues with Sunday morning coffees, shared book recommendations, slow walks through that same park we once called our little universe. If there's one thing I hope you take from this story, it's this. You don't always need to win loud to matter. Sometimes love proves itself in silence, in showing up, in standing firm without applause. And sometimes, even when your name is removed from the invitation, your presence still finds a way to be remembered. Did this story strike a chord with you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters here. And if you want more stories of quiet strength, hard-won peace, and emotional justice, hit subscribe. This is where truth meets healing.